GAA Podcast on RTE.ie, sponsored by Optimum Nutrition. No matter your goal, if you're putting it in, we'll help you get more out. Optimum Nutrition, the official performance nutrition partner of the Gaelic Players Association.
Possession crucial from this. How much longer will the referee allow? Dublin lead by a point, and there's the whistle. It's over. It's over.
We earned it by winning the last two matches on the road, and that's not going to be taken away from us.
But what I love in hurling, I love players that will never give in.
He hits it. He hits it. It's over the bar. Oh, holy Moses.
Hello everyone and welcome along to our latest episode of the RTE GAA Podcast. Myself and Rory joined this week by Liam Sheedy and Shane Dowling as we look ahead to a bumper weekend of All-Ireland semi-finals. Before that though, bit of breaking news because Rory, as we were jumping on here, not one but two managerial departures.
Yeah. Shane told me about Henry. It's that sudden and that soon, which, look, I suppose from Henry Shefflin's point of view, it doesn't really feel surprising. We were just speaking about it off air, the commitment levels involved, and to do it for 3 years. I think overall, I think he can be happy enough with his innings, even though he might feel that, like on certainly last year's Leinster final, that was possibly one that got away. But there's a big rebuild job probably required in Galway, and who knows who they may be looking at, Shane?
Well, I actually said it, I'll be honest, and it's not because he's on this, but Shane is already there, so the right-hand man is already there. Anyway, that's no doubt we'll get the political answer, but Henry is, obviously Davy left as well. Not surprised with Henry, as everyone is saying, very, very hard commitment to what he's done for the last 3 years, and it's not as if it was nearly there and we've the team to go to war with next year just to get over the line. There is probably a big rebuild to be done there, and that's going to take time and energy, and Henry is probably certainly he could be out of energy with the travelling he's had to do the last 3 years there.
Yeah, so Henry gone from Galway, Davy Fitz gone from Waterford. Which one of the jobs do you want, Liam?
Tell you what, but I think Jacqui does call out that, like, intercounty senior hurling management is tough. It's a tough place to be. Like, at the end of the day, if John Kiley's winning everything, there's not much room for anybody else to win much, And Derek has been sweeping up everything that's to be got in the Leinster Championship, with the 5 in a row. So, I think people sometimes have extreme expectations of what managers are supposed to do in general. And now with the way social media has gone, I'm certainly not sorry that social media wasn't as vibrant back in 2008, 9 and 10 as it is now. We used to often get the odd letter in the door or the odd phone call, but my God, like, you're public enemy number one, and with a small family and the commitment, like, people forget the commitment that is made by the likes of Henry Shefflin and Davy Fitzgerald, and like him or load him, I think they bring a huge amount to the game, and the game is better as a result of having people like Henry Shefflin and Davy Fitzgerald involved. So, but I do think it does call out the challenges involved, and I'd say Henry is, he's probably disappointed. I mean, he probably in year one he had a really good All-Ireland semi-final, and there's a few marginal calls against Limerick that if they had to go their way, they were very close. Took Limerick down the home straight in his first year and were very competitive, and unlucky not to win Leinster. Year two, definitely left the Leinster final after them, and done well to beat Tip and get back into the Ireland semi-final, but missed, unlucky not to get a goal early on that could have put him 6 or 7 clear, but rolled over very quickly soon after against the Limerick juggernaut. And I guess this year, obviously not coming out of the group was a tough pill to swallow. And I guess he probably has a group of players that are in transition, and he's made a huge commitment. He's driven from Kilkenny all the way up to Galway, for a long period. 3 years is a long time to be doing that road. And he probably looked at it objectively and said, okay, am I the man for it's probably a 2 or 3 year window. Galway look like a team that, they've got to bring through the younger talent. So, I think I'm sure Henry took his time with it, but I did feel like, when he doing that interview in Pearse Stadium after losing to Dublin, I felt like it was an end of the road interview. You could see the emotion in his face. He's an exceptional person, an incredible hurler, and a really good manager. And just didn't get the break of the ball in Galway, but I think I've no doubt he'll have left his mark in that dressing room. And of course, Davy, I probably would have seen potentially Henry may having a decision to make, because if he committed, he probably had to go another 2 or 3 years. But I think with Davy, I was a bit surprised, to be honest with you, Jacqui. I thought he would definitely see out another term. Very unlucky. I mean, we're talking about Cork in a few minutes about coming into an All-Ireland semi-final. Waterford, if they hold on to their 4-point lead against Tip, they had knocked Cork out. So that's the margins in the Munster Hurling Championship. But I thought progress was made in Waterford. 3 points on the board, probably their best year in the round robin since its inception. So for him to walk away, I was a bit surprised with that. But again, I don't know the rumblings, and I think he probably had with Davy. It's like him, love him or hate him type relationships he seems to have. And again, he's made the decision to step away. I was a bit surprised with that one because I thought Waterford had made progress this year, and he might have had another go at it to make a 3-year stint.
That's the difficulty, Shane, isn't it? Because Waterford actually, if you look at it on paper, look at the way that they played, there's something there. It must be very hard for Davy to make that decision to walk away, knowing that you're walking away from a team that were that close to that position, as Liam said, that Cork are in now.
Yeah, and just going to throw it out there, and Liam would know how these things work more than I would, but did he definitely walk away? Because it was such a shock to everybody, and as you said, there's definitely a team there to go to war with next year. And listen, whether Limerick win or not this year, I mean, they can't stay going forever, right? They just can't. So like at some point in time, somebody's going to have to get rid of them or to get them out of what they're doing. And I was surprised because of that. I couldn't see Davy not going back there, considering the year that they had. So what went on in the background, who knows? But even to look forward now, and if you slagging Liam there and managerials and whatever, for me, I think there's only one person to go back to Waterford. Personally, I think Derek McGrath, has a great relationship with them players. There's a lot of them, they're not coming to the end of their careers, but they're certainly not starting out their careers either. And I think there is a push left in this Waterford team. I think they're better than the results they've showed over the last couple of years. And I just think, a Waterford person back in charge that knows the lads, that he obviously got on very, very well with, that are at the age now where they'll kind of sit down together and say, right, there is one last, they're not old, they're not gone past their peak. So yeah, I just think he could be the perfect fit going back in there. They say that, once you go, you should never go back in. Liam bucked that trend went back in on Ireland, so it certainly can be done. And I think that's probably the road I see happening down in Waterford. But obviously there's other lads there. Ken McGrath was over the 20s, and he had a good team with him as well. So who knows? But I saw an interview with Derek recently saying that he'd like to get back involved with an inter-county team if the right avenue opened up. And I don't think he could have foreseen an avenue like this so quick.
That is the difficulty, Rory, isn't it? Because yes, you're going to have lots of people who are going to be this huge appeal in those jobs, but it's not a simple decision either for a Derek McGrath or whatever, like doing what Liam did to go back into your county. I think for anyone now taking on an inter-county job, it's not a simple, yes, go on, I'll do it,
Well, I suppose from a Galway perspective, there's such a rebuilding required. You probably are best off certainly having local knowledge on your ticket, right? But you definitely do need to have something that's really going to understand the Galway scene, because they keep producing hurlers, but they just don't seem to be translating that into senior players. And I think there are plenty of hurlers in Galway, but it is rebuild and getting lads up to that level. So that's going to require, I suppose, somebody with that local knowledge. That's absolutely a certainty. I think in terms of Waterford, I think Shane is right. And he mentioned it about Liam going back and bucking that trend. Jack O'Connor, I think, has done it twice in a football context. Did he come back on 2 occasions and win All Irelands? So I don't necessarily think I actually think it might even be the perfect time. He's gone now. Let me work it out. Is Derek on since 2019? So if he comes back in, I think 2019.
No, 2019 was Pádraig Fanning.
Pádraig Fanning, sorry. Yeah.
2018, I'd say.
2018.
Yeah.
So he's gone 6 years. That's a nice break. That means there's probably some new guys in the dressing room, and there's probably some older lads in there that will probably still have a very good relationship from a very successful period, considering how much they contested in and around that time, getting to Munster finals, All-Ireland finals, and obviously coming up short that day against Galway. So I think it could be the perfect time for Derek. He'll have learned quite a lot since his time away from the game. And I know he's mad, and as Shane correctly pointed out, he's mad to get back into coaching. I'm a big believer as well in, if you have gone outside for a couple of times, it's no harm to drift back in, just, to just ground the team again. And I suppose they have had Liam Cahill followed by Davy. Maybe, maybe a bit of arm around the shoulder stuff now might be the worst thing in the world for that Waterford bunch, and Derek going back in might just fit the bill.
All right. Well, we will wait and see. And who knows what is going to happen over the next course of the couple of months. One other thing to touch on before we look ahead to the semi-finals is, obviously, Liam, we're talking about you going back in and having success in Tipperary. I think once you have seen that crop of players come through and you've got a generational talent, which you guys were very lucky in the group that you had, I think a lot of people have watched this Tipperary minor team that had the success last weekend and said, oh, I think there's a few of them that could be playing senior hurling for Tipperary in a few years, because it did feel like a sort of a watershed moment for Tipperary, where we haven't seen performances like that from a Tipperary team in quite a while. And there seems to be a lot of talk about this minor team.
Yeah, and it's all justified, Jacqui. You know, like their performance levels in what was, you know, as strong a case for adversity. Like, I mean, you know, everything was thrown at this bunch on Saturday evening down in Nolan Park, and they just kept coming back and refused to wilt. And like, from a Tipperary person to be sitting in the stand watching it, you'd be nothing but immensely proud. I think James Woodlock and his management team deserve huge credit. You know, I mean, one sending off was one hammer blow, and it was really, really harsh. And then the second one, which was marginal, and all of a sudden you're down to 13 against 15, and these guys are 16 and 17 years of age. Like, and just to see where they went on the night and what they brought out of themselves as a group was just incredible to witness. You know, I've watched defensive performances over the last number of years, and I struggle all the time where, you know, this ability for defenders to really go touch tight. Tommy Dunn's great saying was, you got to be touch tight. I mean, the Tipperary defence were absolutely awesome last Saturday night. And again, even when they got to the ball first, but yet if it went behind them, they were still back in front. And again, they're used to the ball late on in the heat of battle for guys that were, you know, kids. Just incredible. And I would really back up your statement, Jack. You know, when I'm walking out of these games, I'm asking myself, how many of those guys could I see walking out and making it to the senior ranks? And I know you're probably talking about 6 or 7 years of a transition, but you could definitely say there's a number of these players that have the capacity and capability to go on and have serious careers with Tipperary. And even watching them over the last few days during Holy Cross there on Monday night and the way they carried themselves, I really liked what I seen. And probably you know, it was an important moment in Tipperary hurling. You know, it was a bit of a tough year from that perspective. You know, we just simply never got to the heights of what we got last year at senior. This year, our 20s were beaten in the final, but you know, we're probably fortunate enough to turn over a really strong Cork team in the Munster final. So done well to get to the All-Ireland final. But I think that minor team has lit up the whole season. And again, even from a supporters perspective, you know, most times when Tipperary took the field this year, we were outnumbered significantly. I mean, it was embarrassing the day of the Cork match to see the sea of red and so little blue and gold. But actually, Tipperary outnumbered Kilkenny in Nolan Park last Saturday evening. So, you know, hopefully that might be a sign of things to come. And definitely a big green shoot in Tipperary. And look, I suppose I've been sort of leaning a little bit on others to get involved to make sure that structurally we're able to bring these players through. But I mean, if you were thinking of getting involved from a Tipperary's perspective, well, I don't think you could say no to not getting involved after what you seen last Saturday evening. It was just incredible to watch.
Jacqui, I think as well, it was class. It was absolutely, and I think it was such a shot in the arm at exactly the right time. Liam mentioned there about the 20s. I think that was really important as well. And there's a couple of really good players. There's a young McCarthy. Is it Darren McCarthy?
Yeah, Darren McCarthy. Brilliant,
I mean, he's definitely going to play senior hurling for Tipperary. And you have, you know, so I think it was, considering how disappointing the senior year was, I think it was massive for Tipperary hurling and massive for hurling. There's no way you can lose Tipperary ever. So this was a victory for hurling. I would always see it. One small quibble I would have with it, I thought it got lost a little bit, given where it was again on our famous calendar. And could it have been the worst thing in the world to play it on the Friday night of this weekend coming?
Or the day of the All-Ireland final.
Or put it back in where it should be, right?
Just put it before the senior match.
You have a jamboree of hurling happening this weekend. It is basically World Cup hurling weekend, right? And could you imagine, right? Let's just say, for argument's sake, you had Tip Kilkenny in Parnell Park on the Friday night, so all the supporters can come up and make it the whole weekend, and that's basically kickstarts the festival of hurling over the whole weekend. To sort of hide it away on the sort of a football weekend, I don't know.
I just listen. I'm not just being a traditionalist, but All Ireland final day when you have to wait all day long for something to happen in Croke Park, and it's screaming out for the minor match to be back there. Anyway, one last question on the minors, Shane. Right? Because obviously you've been involved in this age group, so that leap from taking a really good minor to senior, what does it take to be able to go, right, this guy has it all, but how do I get him to make sure that he plays senior county? Because that, I think, is the biggest struggle that they're going to have. Like, I agree with Liam, like some of these players that we saw with Tipperary, unbelievable hurlers, but there is a difference. So how do you, as a manager, see them and go, yeah, your man needs a bit of nurturing and he can get there?
This was time and patience are the two words I choose, because gone are the days, even when I started out in 2012, I know Declan started out in 2011, like we all jumped from minor into playing senior, right? And that doesn't happen anymore. Like, first of all, it's under 17s anyway.
That probably doesn't even happen at club level, Shane.
No, it doesn't even happen at club level. It's just, that'll tell you how far it's come.
And the extra year again, yeah.
Yeah, but it's not as if you jump in the year after that either. It's like it takes 3 or 4 years. And I suppose, listen, I can't speak for other counties, right? But I can speak for my own. And when you see what like John Kiley does in terms of, like, he wouldn't bring any of them in for maybe 2 or 3 years, right? They'd be still within the system, but then he'd bring them in. But you won't see sight or sound of them for another 2 or 3 years, right? He'll have them in, he'll get them exposed to training, exposed to the SLC. They'll be, on extended panels, but they'll be in around the system. He'll always bring in 3 or 4. His rotation of the squad every single year is quite large, even though, like, he obviously has his main cohort of 20 or 22 or 4 players, but then the other 10 or 12 are constantly rotating. And if someone is in there for 4 or 5 years and become their mid-20s or coming into the late 20s and aren't having an impact, they're out and a new younger lad is in. Like Donnacha Dawlig was in there for a couple of years, Colin O'Neill was in there for a couple of years, Shane O'Brien was in there for a couple of years. So it just takes time. And I think you got to have a good relationship with your 20s manager, in the sense of that you need to know, who do I need to bring in now and who can I leave with the 20s? And then you just got to look at the personnel themselves. So what are their body shape like? Are they going to take more time? Everyone is built differently. You might have a guy 6'3" that's strong, that won't take as much work compared to a lad that's a bit slighter. So I just think you need a really good senior manager. And that's the beauty, I suppose, about having somebody in place that's from within the county for a number of years. Because, like, you take Galway now, a new manager has to go in, there's a trust needs to be built up, Waterford the same. And that's why it's important for the likes of Liam Callan, Tipperary and Pat Ryan and Cork, as hard and all as it is, a long-term stint within your own county, I think makes a massive difference. Because if there is and I'm not going to call it a merry-go-round, I don't think it's the right word, but if you someone there 2 or 3 years, move on, 2 or 3 years and move on, that's when it becomes a lot more challenging.
Yeah, that's a fair point.
Yep.
All right. Well, speaking of moving on, let's move on to the madhouse then of the weekend, because it is going to be a hurling festival in Croke Park. Saturday, it all starts 3 o'clock, Clare against Kilkenny in the first semi-final, and then Sunday, 4 o'clock, Cork against Limerick. So let's go chronologically with this then, Liam. Saturday, Clare Kilkenny for the 3rd successive semi-final. And I think for Clare fans, it just feels like it's got to, I'm not going to say it's now or never, but it does feel like it probably needs to be now with this team. And does the fact that they've beaten them already twice this season help that confidence a little bit, knowing that we can do this and we've got to do it now?
Yeah, it certainly doesn't hinder them anyway, Jacqui. If I remember back to 2010, I guess we had lost the league final and All-Ireland final to Kilkenny in 2009. And we targeted the league match in 2010. To turn over Kilkenny, because we felt we needed to make a statement, even though it was league and it wasn't championship. And we beat them in Thurles. And I think that did put a little bit of a pep in our step to say, okay, we can do it. Because, that was after losing a league final in Ireland. But if you take, this Clare team has gone through 3 successive Munster final defeats, 2 of them where they were on the cusp of victory, probably a little bit further back this year. And they've gone to Croke Park twice and have underperformed. I think, there'd be a lot of question marks over maybe how they set up to succeed in some occasions. Obviously, we're missing John Conlon in year 1, and then they shifted to the sweeper type approach in year 2. But I think for Brian and this group, they will feel that the time is now. I think they've recovered well. They've got Tony Kelly back in the pitch. They got David Reedy came back in the last day, done very, very well. So, they need to go to Croke Park and they do need to deliver, but they're going to meet a formidable challenge, Jacqui. I thought Kilkenny's performance in the Leinster final was very strong. But, I think for Clare to to the end of Saturday evening and have lost 3 successive Munster finals and 3 All-Ireland semi-finals to the same opposition, I think that would be a hard pill to swallow. So you'd expect Clare to come with everything they have in their locker on Saturday.
Yeah, they should. And they're going to need to, because Shane, I think this Kilkenny team, well, they're the only unbeaten team in this year's championship. And I wonder, are they still underrated? There was a touch of that after the Leinster final. You got a sense, listening from some of the interviews, that maybe they felt that way. But I wonder, are we all underrating them a small bit?
I couldn't agree more. I think they're severely underrated. I don't think they're getting the credit that they do deserve. I know, was it, who said it after the...
Was it Killian Buckley, maybe, I think, maybe?
Paddy
Yeah.
Deegan.
Paddy Deegan,
Paddy
yeah.
Deegan,
Yeah, Paddy, yeah.
You know, and it's very rare, like, that you would hear a Kilkenny person coming out and using an external noise as a you know, motivating factor. I've never heard that before. So it's obviously seeped into their dressing room as well, and they obviously believe that they want to get some respect as well. But when all that is said and done, it's kind of irrelevant to a sense, because you've got 2 teams here. I can't remember a more 50-50 game in a long time. It is anybody that calls this game with confidence, for me, is having to guess, because it's so hard to call. And as Liam said, sometimes in sport, a lot of times in sport, you get a chance, and if you don't take it, you may not get a chance again. They only get a second chance. You're saying, okay, no, we may not get this ever again. We're getting a second chance at it here. For Clare to get a third chance, it rarely happens in sport, and against the same opposition as well. Now, I know you could say the same again in a Munster final, but this is different. This is an All-Ireland semi-final in Croke Park. And I know Liam said it won't hinder them, the fact that they've beaten Kilkenny twice this year. They haven't beaten them in Croke Park in an All-Ireland semi-final. So, like, beating them in a league game in Cusack Park and again in the final and third, it certainly won't hinder them, but will it benefit them? I'm not so sure it will. And I think from Clare's viewpoint now, I mean, one thing I think we'd be certain on here is that there'll be no mad tactics anyway. They will go 15-15. I'd say it'd be fairly basic what they're going to go after, and they're just going to attack this thing and just hope that it's going to be enough. I don't think we're going to see sweepers. Pending no injuries, there's probably going to be no changes. And listen, it's a big chance for them. But Kilkenny, they're just so hard to beat. They're so hard to beat, and no matter what Clare throws at them, they're going to be impossible to beat. But what could beat them is Shane O'Donnell taking off, Tony Kelly taking off. You know, Peter Duggan, get back, claw ball.
Rogers.
David Fitzgerald. Like, they can't bargain for some maybe 3 or 4 goals that this Clare team are capable of getting. And one big thing for me, I suppose, is the Mikey Butler, Tony Kelly. If I'm Derek Ling, I'm saying, with all due respect, the last 2 years is the last 2 years, but you're going on Shane O'Donnell because he's a bigger threat this year.
I mean, if he lights up this championship, Rory, that's the end of, because I think everybody has watched Shane O'Donnell and said, all it's going to take is one moment. The thing is, if it doesn't happen for him, it doesn't happen for Clare. That's the way it has been this year. Hasn't
probably got the requisite support cast. Now, having said that, their spread of scores isn't so bad. They, like Aidan McCarthy, has obviously mostly from dead balls, Rogers, David Fitzgerald, Shane O'Donnell himself. They've probably got a better spread of scores in the championship so far than what Kilkenny have, but I think it's defensively. That's where this game, I mean, the Kilkenny full back line, it's as good as what's out there. It's potentially the next best full back line after Limerick's. Like, that's going to be the acid test for them. Will they be able to get a bit of change collectively there and score the 2, possibly 3 goals they need? They definitely need a good start. 2 years ago, now I know John Conlon went down shortly beforehand and they had to make a bit of a strange selection call at that time, and they didn't come out of the blocks at all. I think they lost by 12 points, I think, was it 26-20. Last year, obviously, they closed the gap, but they again started atrociously and had to wait until the second half before they started hurling. I don't think they can afford to do that this time round. They need to get a good start, get firing nice and early. You've got a referee that's going to let a fair bit go in both games, actually. Liam Gordon really swallows the whistle by and large. So, look, I don't think that makes any difference to either team. I think the one thing that I would probably have a huge amount of respect for Clare is the fact that they have come back from an awful lot of punishing defeats. And to bear in mind, they've had 2 defeats this season. Okay, Kilkenny have had none, but both of those were to Limerick. And the first one was a sickener. I mean, they threw that match away. Obviously, the Munster final is the one that kind of makes everybody a little bit queasy about their prospects. But I would 100% agree with Shane. I think this match of the 2 is 50-50. And it's only someone spoofing who thinks that they know who's going to win.
Yeah.
I will say that Clare are a very resilient bunch. you know, I think credit has to be given to them there because they've come back they have had a lot of real sucker defeats, like that would drain a lot of teams. But I'd say there's a stubbornness there, and in fairness to Lohan, I'd say his managerial style is similar to his playing style as it was, just, you know, real stubborn and doesn't care about anyone or anyone else and just goes at it 100 miles an hour. And I think, like, when Clare lost the Munster final, which was really a mediocre performance, I'd imagine there was a bit of soul searching to be done there. And they came out against Wexford then, and, you know, I know until Rory O'Connor got sent off, but they finished very, very strongly. The impact off the bench, I just think it sets them up nicely going into the semi-final. Last year, they played really well in the Munster final. Could have or should have got something out of it and didn't. Whereas this year now, they've had their lull. They probably had a few tough words within their own four walls, got over Wexford, and are ready to attack Kilkenny now.
I suppose the concern is, though, their form is not as good in 2024.
That's very fair.
Yeah.
In Championship 2024, they're not playing as well. I suppose Adam Hogan looked like, you know, he was outstanding in the league. He was probably close on. Himself and David Fitzgerald were probably borderline player of the championship. I thought they were outstanding. And Adam needs to really fire on Saturday because, you know, Owen Cody, he done a massive job on him. Owen Cody ended up having to go to the 40 to get on ball against Clare in that league final. So his form, and equally, I was really disappointed with the Clare half back line in the Munster final. I didn't think John Conlon, David Mack or Dermot Ryan really found their top form, and I think that line is really going to have to stand up. You know, and like, they haven't shown to me that they have an ability to transform the ball from like when Aver has the ball in his hand, like unless Peter Duggan catches it, they're sort of abreast of ideas in terms of who's going to get on the ball. So they have a few items to solve. Unlike, I don't think Tony Kelly. I think Tony Kelly will be followed by Mikey Butler. I think that's who they'll go after. I think he's very comfortable. He knows the job. But I think for Clare to win, Tony needs to have a massive match. Like, Tony got six points last time out against Wexford, so it looked like a guy that could be coming into a bit of form. And I think they'll hand Shane O'Donnell off. But again, you know, for Clare to win, I think Shane O'Donnell and Tony Kelly will have to play to their potential, and we all know the potential they have. But for them guys to be held to be held or not perform, I think Clare will be in big trouble. But equally, defensively, Conor Cleary's been outstanding, but I think the rest of the backs really. I thought Conor Liam was outstanding the last day, but he did have challenges against Kilkenny in the league final. You know, there's no doubt about it. So it'll be interesting to see how, you know, Martin Keown has been in great form and is somewhat an unsung hero. So it'll be good to see how it all plays out. But I'd agree in one thing: we should be in for a cracking match.
Oh yeah, it should be. Can I ask you, Liam? I'll ask Liam first, and then Shane. The Croke Park experience obviously counts for something, and we often hear games are played differently in Croke Park, and we certainly know that's the case in football, and I presume it's the case in hurling. But Liam, what is it that makes it different to playing elsewhere in a hurling context?
I suppose it's where you want to end up, Rory. You know, I mean,
but like the physical game, is it because the pitch is bigger? Is it the acoustics? Is it the way the stadium is set up? Obviously, we're expecting massive crowds for both days. By the way, not to be getting into hurling versus football, I think the hurling semi-finals could surpass the football semi-finals in terms of attendances. But that's neither here nor there. Sorry, but like, is it just the way the ball bounces? Is it the surface? I don't know.
No, I think, like, you know when you get to Croke Park, like, ever since you were knee high to a grasshopper, that's the place, that's the stadium you want to get into, you know. So it does bring that level of, like, as soon as you drive in under that stand, like, it's a special moment when you're going in there, like, and for some teams they can explode, for other teams they can implode, and it's very, very tough if you've gone in there and you've had bad experiences to try and wash yourself or rinse your mind of what's gone on last time around and come back fighting again the next time. And as I said, we always wanted to pride ourselves on going into Croke Park on either the second biggest or the biggest day in championship and really showing our true worth. And I suppose some people, Limerick seem to have it off to a fine art. Shane might be best placed to answer it. We were lucky we got it right every now and again, Rory. But Limerick have it off to a fine art. But I mean, honestly, you know, Clare do need, you know, I don't think it's a hoodoo, but equally, Clare need to bring that 5-star performance that I think is potentially in this group. But I think if they don't bring it or they're already a bit off, this Kilkenny team are serious. So they have probably a little bit more Croke Park experience by virtue of being in Leinster. So I suppose, I don't know, does that count for something?
Yeah, I think it's just the whole experience, I suppose. It's not, as Liam said, like you drive in under the stadium, but you do the same in Páirc Uí Chaoimh. Like Páirc Uí Chaoimh and Croke Park are probably as similar-ish as you're going to get. Now, I know Croke Park is bigger, but I think it's the whole experience. Like, let's be honest about it here. They have enough experience in Croke Park.
Yeah.
Right? They're playing in semi-finals in the last 2 years is more than enough, right? Whether Kilkenny played there 2 or 3 or 4 times more in a year before the game, for me, is irrelevant. It's not as if they're a young team going up there that haven't played there. That is, if you're a new team going in there, definitely, Rory, it's the whole aura about it.
Okay.
This Clare team will go under.
Yeah. All right. Well, 50-50 for that one. I think Sunday's one is probably a few more people weighting this one in Limerick's favour, Liam. And it's because of the record. When you look at what they've done, they're going for 5 All-Irelands in a row, obviously this year, 6 in 7 years. And the only blot on that semi-final copybook is 2019 against Kilkenny. And I was in at that game and felt they probably could have won that one as well. We could be looking at the greatest legacy of all time. So what is it about this Limerick team that makes them so hard to beat in finals and semi-finals?
Actually, the record speaks for itself, Jacqui. I mean, 14 out of 14, like it's an incredible return. To be always on. I mean, that's the sign of a true champion, is that even when the stakes are sometimes, and they've worked themselves into corners and tight corners from time to time, but every time they seem to find a way of working their way out of that tight corner and coming out on top. And like an exceptional bunch, and we should all be applauding what they've achieved. But from a neutral perspective, you'd love to see a game for the ages similar to what we've seen in 2018 when these two teams went toe to toe,
or even like what we got earlier in the season.
Oh yeah, 100%. But I guess there is the Croke Park factor. I mean, Cork went up to Croke Park in 2021 for an Ireland final, Rory, and we could have went home. 25 minutes in, this game over. Even after Cork getting an early goal. So we really need to see this Cork team back up their performances in round 3 and 4 of the round robin, Munster round robin, as opposed to what they've shown us in the All-Ireland series, because their last 2 performances, and we could be looking at a similar outcome to what we got in the 2021 match in Croke Park. And I really do hope we get the former, which is a replica of 2018. But this Limerick team, I can imagine John Kiley and Paul Kinnerk will have looked at the video of how Cork dismantled them for long periods down in Páirc Uí Chaoimh, and they'll be well ready. So the question and the challenge for Pat Ryan is, what can he come with on Sunday that gives them that little bit of an edge? Because I think Cork on the ball, Jacqui, are a match for anyone. They have pace, they have skill, and I thought they brought a real fight to their pitch that night in Cork. I thought, Paul Kinnerk, I think, was going down to try and give a message, and I think Pat Ryan said, "Hey, get up out of here, that this is our area." So there was a real statement of defiance, I thought, in Cork that night. And if the rumours are true, I think John Kiley was getting the aftermath celebrations video, so there might be a little bit of a prolonged video piece before they leave the hotel on Sunday. But I think if both teams come and play the way, the danger is that Cork get swallowed up and can't get their hands on the ball, because this Limerick team have a habit of doing that, and they go for you in that first 10 or 15 minutes. And if Cork can get through the first 10 or 15 minutes and get to half time still alive, I think then you still have a chance. But the danger is, will they be able for what I believe could be a Limerick onslaught early on, because I'd say they were hurting. Champions don't lose that often, but equally they certainly don't have an intention of losing twice to the same opposition in the 1 year. So this is bring it on is all I can say.
Do you know, that's exactly it. That's the one thing that Limerick don't do, Shane. And you've been in there for long enough. You know that once you've poked the bear generally comes out and absolutely eats everything that is in front of it. And I think that's probably the fear for Cork people, that maybe they have done it. But there is a sense that maybe they have something that could get at Limerick. And that's why John Kiley is trying to go back and look at all the things, because they found a way to get past them once already this year. And if they follow a similar template, there is creaks in the armoury. They did find ways to get at Limerick. And maybe that is the thing that's keeping John Kiley awake at night, that maybe there are some flaws that he needs to fix. Yeah,
and funny, like Limerick is saying, or Liam is saying, that if Cork can get to half time still in the game, I mean, if I'm Pat Ryan, I'm thinking the opposite. I'm saying in the last number of years, Limerick's worst performances have been in the first half of all of the All-Ireland semi-finals that they played. They need to flip their mindset here and say, we're going after these early and we're going to put them in the back foot. And when we get to half-time, we need to ensure that we nail them again for the second half. I mean, you can't go into a game hoping to stay alive and thinking, oh, we've poked the bear now and they've videoed the game. And because I've heard that all, and I'm saying this from a Cork viewpoint, they need to be going out here in their front foot, because if they don't and they're hoping to stay alive and they need to stay in the game earlier on, they may as well forget about it. The one thing I will say is I put huge value on puckouts, right? I know it's a big part of the game now. And I think, I was talking to someone today and he said, oh, will Cork continue with the long puckouts like they did in the Limerick and Páirc Uí Chaoimh? And my answer to that would be, well, I don't see any reason why they shouldn't, because everybody knows how Limerick is going to play. I mean, Liam has probably studied Limerick more so than a lot of people. He knows how they're going to play, but it's trying to beat him is another thing. So if Cork have won 4 games in the trot, albeit 2 were average performances at best, but they won 4 games in the trot playing the same way, they now need to trust their game plan. Obviously, John and Paul are going to come up and say, okay, if they go along, we need to do X, Y, and Z. But the one thing I will say is that if I'm in the Limerick dressing room, I'm saying, okay, when they went short, and when I mean short to the full back line the last day, we absolutely devoured them and got 2 goals from it. So I can withdraw my full forward line, and I would be encouraging Cork to go short, right? And if I withdraw my full forward line, well, my half forwards can get a good bit back to field, and then they'll be there for the breaks, where maybe they weren't doing that down in Cork. So I think Cork struggle with the short puck out, especially to their full back line. So I would be encouraging that from a Limerick viewpoint. And are they going to get the same bounce of the ball that they got down in Cork by going long and gambling on the breaks? And it does work, and it has worked for them, and I've seen them doing it in the last 2 games as well. But when Limerick turn over that ball back there and the half forwards have retreated and somebody picks up the ball, as Brendan Cummins says, they tic-tac you the whole way up the field, and then that's when they're at their best. So I know it's very, very basic, but the breaking ball here for me for on Sunday for Cork is if they don't win the majority of them breaks. I mean, they didn't just win the breaks down in Cork; they got goals off them.
But they have ball winners though, Shane. You know, in Declan Dalton, in Seamus Harnedy. Cork haven't had the profile of that kind of player before. You know, well, sorry, not in the last couple of years. Yeah,
but very few of them are going to catch a ball in the air. So you're not going to catch the ball over Kyle. You're not going to catch a ball over Dermot and Declan, are very rare, right? So the majority of the balls are going to go to ground. When the ball goes to ground, Cork may win them. But down in Páirc Uí Chaoimh, they didn't just win them, they were straight through on goal. Yeah. Is that going to happen again on Sunday? I don't think it is, right? Anyway, that's just one area of the game that I would say, if Limerick can win that battle, if they can nail Patrick Collins' puck out numbers, I think that's going to be straight away give him a huge platform. But going back to what Liam said in 2021, Jesus, I know people say Clare go man and man. Cork went man and man that day, and Limerick just absolutely pulverised them, right? Now, one thing I will say is that there is no Peter Casey. He's a massive loss. There's no 2 ways about it. Barry Nash, who knows what to believe, right? I was told he was out. Then I see a local Limerick journalist today saying he's heard that he may be back in. So take it that he's out. Sean Finn is probably going to play instead of him. Sean is no hurling done, right? He done his cruciate. He was no longer back, and he done his hamstring. Seamus Flanagan, is he going to start ahead of Shane O'Brien? He's had an injury. So Limerick have had a number of injuries, right? They're not machines. It has to come to a stop at some stage. And if Barry Nash is missing, he's a huge loss for Limerick in that attacking threat going forward, right? You lose that straight away. And then obviously Peter missing, and Sean is a lot of games missed as well. But funny enough, Barry's worst game in a long time was against Cork, down in Cork. And this was the answer, or why would you want to know that? Because Cork played 3 in the full forward line, nearly traditional, where most teams don't do that now. So Barry was really close to his own goals, and he was forced to defend. Where his best game is where somebody brings out a corner forward nearly into the half forward line, and he's essentially playing then as a half forward, as a half back, and then he can run at pace, get the ball off the shoulder as he was doing. So, you know, while it'd be a massive loss the way Cork play, it might actually suit more 3 defenders, be it Mike, Dan Morrissey and Shawnee Finn inside. So there's a number of plots there that will be interesting to see. But for me, the puck outs, Patrick Collins, the ones are going to be huge. And then obviously if Barry is missing, is going to be another loss as well. But going to be replaced by somebody who's very little game time in him as well.
Yeah, an all-star all the same though, Rory. Like, you know,
we're
looking at
one
all
of the all-time
plots.
greats.
Yeah, exactly. And like, that's just one of the plots. As Shane said, there's so many to pick from, and that's what makes this so intriguing.
Oh, but sure, like, you talk about plots, right? I'm down here at the minute. I'm in Cork at the minute, and I was up in the hospital this morning. My mum's not well. So I was up in the hospital this morning. All people are talking about all in the hospital. You go into the match, you get your tickets for the match. If you get in the train, it is literally the only. There's rumors that there could be 75,000, like pushing close to sellouts. That all that's left is the Nally and the up in the gods. Like, this has the feel of an All Ireland final. That's the caliber of fixture that it is, really, I suppose, for people down here. Because look, if you're beaten on Sunday, you're gone, so you may as well make a big deal out of it. And like, one of the things I hope, and I know this is very aesthetically pernickety now, but I hope the band are there. I hope the RTE band are there, and I'd love a march. There's no one loves a shul around the park as much as me, especially if I'm there as a supporter, right? I love the shul. So I hope that happens, and I hope that, because it adds a sense of occasion and colour, and it just makes this whole thing, this raucous atmosphere, which I think will be delivered. There are two massive counties. It'll be reminiscent of that famous 2018 semi-final. I was at that as well. Jesus, I nearly had to be wrung out after that, because I mean, the emotions up and down into extra time. Shane was playing that day. I think you did very good. Actually, you did a great game in extra time. Shane, how many points did you score in extra time? Did you get 2 or 3? You got 2 anyway, I think, did you?
Did a few anyway, yeah.
I think you got 2 or 3 in extra time.
He's playing the modesty card there now, Rory.
Don't remember, kid. I scored so many I can't remember.
I think he got a good few in extra time, and in fairness, Limerick broke for home. But I think
bagged an old goal there too, didn't you, Sheedy?
yeah.
You're forgetting that one, Liam.
That's right. The goal.
There you go.
How did I forget that?
Well, Rory, I know you're being very nostalgic there now, but if they do have the band and if they do have the march, you'd want to come out of it a bit better, because that's what you did. That's what you did in 2021, and I could have been gone home at 5-4.
I know, and as Shane famously said after the 2018 semi-final, I hope we're not just coming up to march behind the band. But look, I think it just has all the makings of it. Do I think Cork will perform? I do. I think they'll play well. Do I think that'll be good enough to win? I'm not so sure. I think one of the reasons that the Cork public have, I suppose, fallen, I would say there was any falling out of love, I think, but certainly started to roll back in behind in a big way, is they're playing Cork hurling. They're playing, it's exciting. It's 3 inside the full forward line. Bang it in early, bang it in often, and bang it in high. And let's see what happens. And let's get runners and run like hell. This is going to be a Forrest Gump. This is going to be run, run, run. Keep the pace high. Shane mentioned there, Limerick are not machines. They're on the road a long time. I know they're not an old team, but if you can keep a high octane pace to this game for 70, 75 minutes, I think you give yourself a good chance. And then it's a case of getting a performance out of your forwards and racking up a big enough score. Will that be good enough even at that stage? Maybe, maybe not. But look, I think it's just going to be epic, and I can't wait.
Rory, I'll tell you a quick one there. Obviously, after that 18 final or semi-final, we said, I hope I'm not going up to march behind the band.
Yeah.
Anyway, we went to win the All-Ireland, and we were inside the celebrations afterwards, and I see John Kiley going to the toilet and Dad going into the toilet behind him. So I just kind of saw it and continued on. Anyway, I see the two of them coming out and they're bent over laughing. I says, what is after happening inside in there? But the two of them inside anyway chatting, and Dad goes up to Johnny, says, I want to thank you very much. I said, not at all, Paddy. No, he said, I really want. He said, why is that? Well, he said, after the semi-final, he said, Shane opened, he said that he didn't go. And obviously there was talk then coming into the final about would I be starting, wouldn't I be starting, the whole lot. And anyway, Dad said, I want to thank you. Why is that? Well, he said, Shane said afterwards that he didn't want to go up and march behind the band, and you gave him exactly what he wanted.
Absolute classic. Well, listen, I don't know if you're going to get the band, Rory, but I do hope that you get everything else you want.
I'll be in there nice and early.
A good State of the Nation address. And lads, let's hope we get 2 cracking semi-finals, because I think Rory's right. I think we're going to have nearly full houses at the weekend. It's going to be a festival. It's hard to believe we're nearly at the end of the championship, but it has been rip-roaring from the start. And I really hope that we get that this weekend. So look, we'll leave it there, but thanks a million for being with us. And to everybody who is going to the matches this weekend, enjoy it, celebrate it. And here's hoping we get the occasion to match it. And we'll be chatting to you on Monday to look back on it all. Liam, Shane, thanks a million for being with us. And don't forget to like and follow wherever you get your podcasts. We'll talk to you next week.
By a point, and there's the whistle, it's over.